The new Marvel Rivals patch has changed a lot of characters, including massive nerfs to many of your favorite heroes. That's why in this video we're going to talk about huge losers that got way weaker after these nerfs, or characters that were really not that affected from these nerfs and are still very viable. Now, I've really been loving the support on the channel, and I can't thank you guys enough, but I really want to get to 10,000 followers on Twitch, so if you like the content, consider following me on Twitch. I stream 4 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and I would appreciate a follow there. Now, the first loser on this list is Moon Knight, and Moon Knight did receive a pretty substantial nerf to his ultimate, but that's not why he's weaker. In fact, his ultimate is actually still very strong, and Moon Knight even did get a buff in one regard with the Cloak and Dagger synergy, because now he gets a little bit of health inside the invisibility dome. But the reason that Moon Knight is a huge loser going into this patch is because if we looked at the win rates across all ranks, we saw that he actually had a very low win rate. And in general, Moon Knight was a character that people respected and knew was powerful, but he wasn't winning all that much. And the reason was Moon Knight is actually very good against certain types of strategies and very bad against others. Mainly, he's extremely good when he's not contested. When he gets to sit there and he doesn't take fights with other DPS and he gets to farm his ultimate, do a lot of damage, poke from distance, he's great. So he's amazing into something like triple support, which was pretty predominant last season. But when there are more DPS that see play, especially hyper mobility DPS, which we're going to see a lot more this season, a lot more Psylocke, a lot more Star-Lords, a lot more characters that want to go and fight Moon Knight, he's not going to be very effective. He doesn't have a lot of tools to fight people in a 1v1 when they challenge him. Like, yeah, he has an Ankh that can interrupt some mobility. He has 2 sets of movement, but they make him really vulnerable midair. Moon Knight is going to lose a lot of these to people of equal skill. This really explains why Moon Knight didn't win a lot of games. He had a low win rate because triple DPS was very common, and Moon Knight is very bad against multiple DPS. Now, this patch pushes us far away from triple support, the one composition that Moon Knight was the best against, while incentivizing more characters that are really good against him. Does this mean that Moon Knight is unplayable? Absolutely not. This character could still be amazing, especially if you still combo him with Grudo. It's still phenomenal. But it's important to understand that he does have some really core weaknesses that are going to be much more common in this mid-season patch than they were previously. So if you are a Moon Knight only player or someone that mains him, you will struggle more in this patch than you did in the previous one. Now, we referenced them already, but we do got to talk about Cloak and Dagger. The cornerstone of the previous meta, one of the most picked characters in the game, and necessary for triple support the majority of the time. What exactly did the changes do to Cloak and Dagger? How much weaker are they, and where do they fit now in the meta? Well, the ultimate is going to cost more, so it's going to take longer to farm. You're not going to have as many Cloak and Daggers getting their ultimate within like the first 20 seconds of a fight. It's going to take a little bit longer, which is one of the things that you could do in the previous meta, where you just charged ultimate very quickly and you tempo ulted because you ulted in front of everyone else. Not going to be nearly as common. You're also not going to be able to stack the ultimate, and it isn't going to last as long. This, combined with the other support ult nerfs, have severely weakened triple support. We talked a lot about how triple support was already a composition that was not winning anywhere near as much as 2-2-2, but I think that these changes further push people away from it to the point where we're going to see a lot less triple support, if any at all. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end. Now, this character does move faster in their ult, so you're not going to be as easy to hit with something like Magneto ult, which is good overall. I think that that was a kind of silly dynamic where if you popped ult, you had to run away or you had to have someone save you. Not going to be as needed as before. There's going to be a little bit more counterplay on your end. You don't just fold to a Magneto. And then also you're going to have a slight buff to Cape. And really, this character is still going to be good in a lot of ways. They're still going to have mass heal, have a really powerful defensive ultimate, and have a lot of utility for the mid fight. There's a lot to like here, but the main reason that Cloak and Dagger was so dominant last patch was because of how fast they generated ultimates and how long their ultimate lasts. And with that no longer being the case, Cloak and Dagger's power level dramatically decreases. Does this mean this character is unplayable? Absolutely not. This character can still be good as part of a 2 support composition, but triple support, not going to be played nearly as much. Cloak and Dagger as a necessity, absolutely not. And really, a lot of other supports become much more appealing because of these changes hitting Cloak and Dagger so hard. So still playable, yes, but they're definitely not the best support anymore. Now, a character I gotta mention is Doctor Strange. A lot of people have been asking me how his nerfs have affected him, going from 650 health to 600 health. And really, Doctor Strange has been getting nickel and dime nerfed for a little while, getting another nerf in Season 1 to his shield, and also his AoE ability, Maelstrom of Madness. Now, what does this all mean for Doctor Strange? Well, really, Doctor Strange is undoubtedly still an S-tier tank, most likely still the strongest tank in the game, especially now that while Magneto is gonna be pretty strong, we'll talk about that in a little bit, not quite as needed with less Cloak and Dagger and the less of a need to counter Cloak and Dagger ultimate, but Doctor Strange still has everything he needs to be an absolute powerhouse. Very consistent damage output, very consistent mitigation, an amazing ultimate, a teleporter that is basically ultimate in power level. I mean, this character is so strong and does so many things well that it would take some massive nerfs to make him weaker, like way weaker, and not an S-tier tank. But maybe if they keep nickel and dime nerfing him, eventually we'll feel it, but this is certainly not enough right now to take this character anywhere away from his status as like a top 2 tank, undoubtedly. Now we got to talk about Storm. How much does Storm get nerfed? Is Storm unplayable now? Is Storm still broken? What did they exactly do to Storm? Well, they nerfed her fall off damage, so she's not going to do as much damage from range, and they nerfed her damage in general to herself that she's going to give her with her ability, but they're also buffing the ally damage. So the damage you're going to give your allies is a little bit buffed. So if you play with your team more, you're going to actually give them more damage, which incentivizes you to play with them a bit more. But overall, this character is still really strong. Has a very powerful kit, strong for a lot of the reasons that she was strong last patch, and everyone banned her, and she had a high win rate last patch. So yeah, she was very dominant. However, and this is important, Storm had a lot more weaknesses than people realized, and even towards the end of last patch, people started to ban her less and less. And the reason is because there's a lot of weaknesses to a character like Storm, and we're seeing a lot of the same weaknesses in a character like Human Torch. And it really comes down to the fact that the character doesn't have great vertical or horizontal mobility when they are, you know, trying to dodge something or duel something. So that means that characters that can challenge them midair, that just have those things, really can kill them over and over again. And namely, 2 characters that are very strong this patch, Star-Lord and Psylocke, give Storm a ton of problems, give Human Torch a ton of problems, give any Flyer a ton of problems, and they might be the hardest characters to deal with on a character like Storm, and they're going to be more played now than ever. And Storm is definitely capable of getting shut down, and even though those nerfs to her individual damage are small, that's what she really needs if she wants to have a chance to fight characters that want to actively duel her or shut her down. But like in the situations where she's not contested at all, gets to chill, play with her team, and just apply pressure, that's all good. She's gonna do that even better now because her allies are gonna get more damage increase. But when characters are hunting her, chasing her down, trying to punish her, she's gonna struggle quite a bit more. And I think this season is gonna prove that Storm is not some infallible character that needs to be only nerfed all the time. There's a lot more counters than you think, and Storm can be a liability just as much as she's a carry if you play the right characters to shut her down. In addition to Star-Lord and Psylocke, there's also like Adam Warlock is insanely powerful at shutting her down. Not a character that is going to be crazy weaker than she was before, but a character that does have more vulnerabilities that are going to be more played in this meta as opposed to the previous patch. Now, number 5, I'm actually talking about 2 characters here, Luna and Invisible Woman, 2 characters that really only received an ult increase. How much different does that make them? How much weaker does that make them in the meta? Are they still playable? Let's talk about it. Now, really, these characters are still going to be fine. In fact, they're going to be great. I think these characters are going to be really strong going into this patch for a lot of reasons, but really what this ultimate nerf does is make triple support very hard to play because no one's going to be building their ultimate at a consistent rate when you have so little bodies to heal and so many supports, right? You're going to need to be able to generate your ultimate somehow, and not all these characters can do offensive damage nearly as much to build it up. So yeah, it's going to be too slow. But Luna and Invisible Woman both have the mass heals to sustain a 2 support composition, and they both have very powerful defensive ultimates. So whether you're running Luna, Invisible together, or you're running Luna and like Adam, or like Invisible and like Mantis, or whatever you're running, these supports are incredibly powerful that provide tons of utility and really powerful ultimates. And I think that they become a lot more competitive when the more powerful one, or the one that lasts longer, Cloak and Dagger, got heavily nerfed. I would also say that Invisible Woman in general was a character that people were still figuring out last mid-season or half-season, and now people are a lot better at Invisible Woman, capable of shutting down ultimates like Eye of Agamotto, making plays that pull people out of position, helping flyers with their shield, and just helping DPS take aggressive angles in general, or denying dives. There's a lot to love about that, and then Luna now has the most powerful defensive ultimate, period. Perhaps one of the, if not the most powerful ultimate in the game. So yeah, these characters are going to be really, really good, especially right now. Namor's the character that I'm very surprised didn't receive a nerf going into this patch. Most likely with the synergy, the most powerful DPS, and also very good at shutting down a lot of characters. You can kill flyers, you can kill flankers, you can flank yourself and be very aggressive against non-flankers, people that just want to poke. And yeah, the Namor Luna synergy is so strong that I wouldn't be surprised if Luna does get ban targeted. But yeah, very, very powerful if she's not. Namor and Luna is so strong, and especially against a lot of these dive tanks as well. It's just really, really good. So these characters are going to be better than ever, and I think they're actually better this season or this patch than they were in the previous one, even though they got a nerf. It's interesting how that works, but just because a character gets nerfed doesn't mean that they are going to end up being worse in the meta. These characters are most likely going to be better in the meta, especially Luna, I think, but Invisible as well. Characters that are going to be played even more and very, very strong. Now, number 6 is Magneto. Now, what they did to him is they nerfed his survivability. His curtain doesn't last as long, so he can't block things as long, but they did buff his damage. And I want to make this clear that this is undoubtedly a crazy buff to the character. Buffing Magneto's damage is just a little bit wild when I think he already did plenty of damage as someone who plays Magneto quite a bit. And now he's going to do even more damage. And this impacts a lot about the character. Doing damage, not to the frontline tank. I talk about this a lot when I coach on Magneto. You do damage to off-angling DPS or even the people that are playing behind the tank or even supports if you can, because you're pressuring them out. These players care a lot more about your damage. And small damage buffs make those characters care even more. It can generate more kills for you, and it can force them off of angles faster because they respect your damage more. So that's what damage buffing does on Magneto. It basically just makes him command more respect. It also means that you're going to build your ultimates faster because you're doing more damage overall. This is a small price to pay for a nerf in survivability, where all you have to do is just time the curtain better. And honestly, when you're really applying a lot of pressure on Magneto, you don't have to curtain all that much. You have a bubble for yourself if you absolutely need it. Your damage is going to allow people to get pushed back. You can always just get healed up. You have a lot of health. So in games that you're providing a ton of pressure and really rolling the enemy, you're not curtaining all that much. It doesn't even really matter about curtain. I even say that a perfect Magneto game is a game that you almost never curtain. You're only using it to like deny certain ultimates or things like that. Now granted, once again, Magneto isn't as necessary because you're not going to be shutting down Cloak and Dagger ultimates as much. When she's played, she's going to be harder to hit, and I think she's going to be played quite a bit less than she was previously. Although there are other reasons that people will play Cloak and Dagger besides their viability, namely the fact that they are easy mechanically to play, so they're going to have an increase in pick rate that is independent of their power level, so there will be still quite a bit of Cloak and Daggers, but less easy to hit ultimates and less Cloak and Daggers in general means that that aspect of Magneto is not as needed. But Magneto is still good as like a pseudo counter to the Star-Lord ultimate. You're not going to be able to counter the whole thing, but being able to give your team a couple of seconds at the start is great. You're still good against a lot of support ultimates. You can kill Invisible Woman's or other characters in their ultimate. And still, in ranged play, playing poke with Strange Magneto is still going to be very, very strong, very amazing if you can play it. And yeah, I mean, overall, this is a really nice buff to Magneto. It's going to make him a fair bit more powerful, which is kind of interesting that a character that I thought was already plenty powerful is going to get even more powerful. So yeah, he's not a loser on this list at all. In fact, he's a big winner. So yeah. Now 7 is Magic, and Magic got some interesting changes. They got weaker Demon's Rage, but now they build ultimate faster. So what does this mean for the character? Some of the combos are different. Or is the character unplayable now? What does this actually mean? Well, while this does mess with Magic's dueling capabilities and one-on-one capabilities, I think it's kind of interesting what they're doing here with Magic's identity. And with faster ultimate generation, this means that you're going to have more cycles of just being able to go in with your ultimate that is still very powerful, still buff from the previous season. And I do want to make this clear that one of the prevailing playstyles of Magic lately and just in general is Brawl Magic. You're not necessarily going and flanking, going in the back line, trying to duel people. You're fighting on the front line. You're dealing damage to enemy tanks. You're CCing them. You're applying pressure. You're just helping your team a lot on the front line. You're helping your tanks a lot. This is something that's very common because you don't want to put yourself in danger. You will go in when there's certain cooldowns that are down or when people are isolated, but most of the time you're not necessarily just going all in. You're brawling a lot, fighting a lot more on the front line, and because you have faster ult generation, you're going to be able to build that ultimate on the brawl front line and then go use your ultimate as a catalyst to try to win a fight. And while you're not going to be as reliable at dueling people because of these nerfs, you are going to be better at the brawl into ultimate cycle, right? Because you're going to build up that ultimate much faster. I feel like this is a slight shift in Magic's identity that was already happening behind the scenes throughout the meta, and now it does make that cycling a bit better. And one of the things also is that now the synergy between Magic, Black Panther, and Psylocke, that got buffed. So Psylocke and Black Panther are gonna really love playing with the Magic, and now I really do think that Magic is still gonna be really, really good. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being quite a buff when you're playing with those characters. And in general, if you change up how you're playing, your play style, I think it's gonna just feel good to have more ultimates throughout a game and be able to carry with your ultimates when your ultimate is so strong and capable of killing people out of support ultimates, which is really cool. The number 8 on the list is the Loki, and a lot of people were surprised to see not just an ultimate change on Loki, because he got his ultimate changed where it's harder to generate, and now he has 2 less bullets in his primary. So what exactly does this do to Loki? Well, Loki was actually winning a lot and was very dominant in the previous meta. He's very good in triple support and just honestly very good in general, capable of building up an ultimate faster than even Cloak and Dagger. That was just crazy to see, but I analyzed a lot of top level Lokis, and the stuff they were pulling off on this character was crazy. And looking through the top 100 players last in the previous patch, there was a ton of Loki players. Loki just had crazy denial. Like, you could deny any dive. You had very powerful abilities. Your totem was so strong. You were very difficult to shut down because you could play a lot of different positions off angling from your team, and your ultimate charged so fast, and you could use it in different ways. I think Loki ultimate, and just the fact that it built so fast and that it could be pretty much whatever you need in the situation, namely double defensive ultimate, was just so good. So it does make sense that they changed him, but even with these changes, Loki is still going to be phenomenal. Yes, he's going to have slightly less uptime. Yes, he's going to have slightly less ultimates, but he's still going to build ultimates as one of the fastest characters in the game, and it's going to be even better to play Loki right now in dual support that is going to be more prevalent because you get options. Like, sometimes you want double defensive ultimate, sometimes the opponents don't have a defensive ultimate and you want to copy your Storm ult or something else, and you can win a fight that way. Because there's going to be less defensive ultimates throughout the battlefield, now you're going to have more decisions to make about how you win their fight. It's not always going to be, I need to copy a defensive ultimate and just chill. Sometimes it's going to be, I need to copy an offensive ultimate and win the fight with it right now, cap the objective. There's a lot of different decisions that you're going to have on this character, and I still think he's one of the hardest characters in the entire game. And one of the only things that I could think that would hold him back this season or this patch is namely the fact that you can't really play him with certain other supports in duo support. Like, him and Adam Warlock can't be played together. So while I think both characters are strong, I'm putting my money on Adam Warlock this season, but I do think that Loki is very, very good as well, so it's going to be hard to pick. Overall, he's still a great character, and even though he did get nerfed quite a bit, I don't want you to think that this character is unplayable by any metric. He's still one of the strongest characters in the game for sure. Now, let's talk about triple support really quickly before we talk about Iron Man and the Hulk. And triple support in general is going to be very dead. And I want to make this clear here. Triple support was not really that good in the previous patch. It lost more than 222. While it was better than some random compositions that had one support or whatever, most of the time triple support was a composition that felt better than it actually was. It felt good to play, doesn't mean it actually won all that much, and it didn't. And now it's just a lot weaker. Namely, you're not going to be able to build support ultimates fast enough to make it worth it. And if you're playing triple support up against 2 supports, especially if your triple support is like Cloak, Luna, and freaking Invisible Woman, none of you are going to build an ultimate in time for both of their supports to build an ultimate. and you're just going to be outpaced really severely. So yeah, triple support, I would not recommend playing it unless a couple of things. I would say if you are going to play triple support, you absolutely need an Adam, a Mantis, a Loki, or a combination of some of those characters. The reason is that you need more pressure. You need more mid-fight pressure. And if you can replace that in a support composition, like play Adam, Mantis with a Luna, and then you have a Namor as your solo DPS, now we're talking, because you got a lot of damage with the Mantis, a lot of damage with the Adam, a lot of damage with the Namor, and a synergy, and then it's okay, right? In some situations, this can work, but you got to make sure that you have enough offensive capability, or else you're setting yourself up for failure. Namely, you need to have offensive capability to build ultimates, where Adam is going to build the bulk of his ult, Mantis is going to build the bulk of her ult from doing damage and not just healing, so you're not kind of starved for that resource. And I would definitely not recommend triple support at all with only one tank. Not at all this season. It's going to be way too slow to build any ultimates. It's going to be really, really bad. Now, I still wouldn't recommend triple support unless you have like 3 support mains on your team. Then maybe, but even still, if you could play Adam, you could play freaking something else, right? But anyways, triple support is dead. Long live triple support. Anyways, the last thing I want to talk about is the gamma change. Iron Man plus Hulk. So Hulk is going to receive a slight HP nerf. He's still going to be super, super strong. Still going to be an S tier tank. Very powerful. And I think still deserving of a ban, especially in the high elos where people can play Hulk reasonably well. Hulk is still an absolute menace and one of the strongest tanks. Now, Iron Man is going to be weaker with the gamma change now, but stronger by himself. So he's not going to be as oppressive with the Hulk Iron Man team up, but Iron Man, you know, he can be played without the Hulk Iron Man team up and he's still fine. I don't think he's amazing. He still has a lot of the same weaknesses that he generally has without the huge upside, but he's fine. And with the synergy, he's good, but I don't think he's completely oppressive. He's going to be able to apply a lot of pressure, but he has some weaknesses. Namely, characters that can target him in the air, characters like Star-Lord, Psylocke, even like a Spider-Man is really annoying for an Iron Man to deal with. And yeah, but I don't really think that Iron Man's the problem in this composition all that much. A lot of people will talk about how Hulk always gets banned because of the Iron Man synergy. No, Hulk gets banned because Hulks that are good are so insane. Very high actions per minute, very high carry potential. Hulk is just phenomenal in the right hands, and he has super, super high carry potential. And that's still the case even with the slight nerfs. So these characters are still here. They're still around. And I think a lot of people have been sleeping on them because they've been perma-nerfed to the point where people are just not even thinking about them anymore. But I promise you, these characters are still really, really strong, still demanding of respect, especially the Hulk. And I don't think you have to ban them every single time, but you should have a counter plan in place if you don't ban them, because you're still going to lose to a great Hulk, I promise. Anyways, I hope you learned something in this video. Definitely let me know what characters you think need buffs or nerfs in the comments down below. And smash that like, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Thank you so much for coming by. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.